Hello everyone, today I'm going to be going over some more data visualizations with you guys, as well as its implications on something called Horseshoe Theory that you've probably heard of, and it's very heavily refuted among the academic community, so we're going to go ahead and try to disprove it, debunk it, I don't know, discuss it. So let me ask you a question to start things off. What would a one-dimensional political spectrum look like? Would it just be left and right? And what would those words mean in that case? These are very good things to think about as we start to think about horseshoe theory, because horseshoe theory is a single-dimensional, diagram. You're just talking about a U shape, essentially. So when we say left and right, when we're referring to horseshoe theory, who's on the far left? Is it Joseph Stalin, or is it, Mikhail Bakunin, who are actually very different individuals? And when we're talking about the far right, who are we talking about? So, that will probably differ depending on where you are on the political spectrum, so I don't want to get too far into it. But let's just go ahead and talk about what the data suggests. So going ahead, we looked at a couple of videos ago, these regression planes, right? This is the one for the economic axis. This is the one for the authoritarian libertarian axis. It's just the basic trend of the data across these axes. And then this is the one overall. So what I did today was just basically boiled it down to an axis, a line. And this is interesting because it's basically the single line that fits all of this very widely spread data. So it's suggested by this that a one-dimensional political spectrum would look something like this. And in my opinion, I think it's pretty true. This is why you have so many anti-fascist groups down here in this corner, and you have so many fascists up here. Now, people would probably argue with that. The horseshoe theory, the people behind that, it generally came around to thinking that communism and fascism are similar, which is not something I want to get into very much detail in this particular video, because I just feel like it could go on forever. You could say that maybe there are more similarities between Stalin and fascists. Some people will argue with you about that. I would say that might be true, but Stalin's also not the best representative of communism, in my opinion. Someone who's living in a commune, like in the 60s and 70s, or like in, the Zapatista communities, where they just share resources as equals to one another, and I don't see anything in common between that and a fascist hierarchy, where there's completely strict top-down authority and inequality. That's not something that I see as similar, but if you do, that's fine. So another thing they like to point at is populism. There's shared policies on the left-wing populist side and the right-wing populist side on protectionism and so forth. The main issue that I see with that is that the reasons that someone might support protectionism, for example, would highly differ depending whether they're a left-wing populist or a right-wing populist. For a right-wing populist, it might be something like America first, stopping China, but then for the left, it's probably going to be something more like protecting American workers, or making sure that capitalist globalization doesn't infect the world. So that's kind of like very flawed, in my opinion, to say that that makes them similar, or that they curve upwards towards each other, as a horseshoe would. So yeah, that's just kind of what I wanted to talk about for this video. I just thought this was interesting. So yeah, that's all.